Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the On the Diamond Into the podcast. This is episode 99 of the show. As always, I am your host, Mahal. And today, like I said, episode 99 time of recording is 2:23 p.m. on Tuesday, November 25th. We are one episode away from 100. And like I said last episode, we do have an announcement to make at episode 100. I'll be announcing that on Instagram tomorrow after this episode goes live later tonight. That said, today we are going to be talking about Jorge Polanco and a potential reunion there, and we'll be comparing him to that of a trade target I mentioned on last week's episode, the man, the myth, the legend, Brandon Lowe. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, like I said, on today's episode, we're going to be comparing Brandon Lowe, Jorge Polanco. We're going to start with the guy the Mariners and the fans know best, Jorge Polanco. In 2025, this guy hit 265, 326, 495. That is an over 800 OPS, a 132 WRC plus, which is the highest of his career, 26 home runs. That is the second most since 2021 in his career, 2.6 F4, he played 138 games. That is the most again since 2021. 8% walk rate, 15.5% strikeout rate. That is 14% lower than it was a year ago. He had 30 doubles, 78 RBIs. He was in the 83rd percentile in strikeout percentage, a big reason why his other numbers went up. He was also pretty much average in walk rate, whiff percentage, chase percentage, and his launch angle sweet spot, all leading to success for him. He's above the 60th percentile in hard hit, barrel percentage, average exit velocity, X slug, X batting average, X WOBA, but he feels like it's everything. And he was below the 60th percentile in bat speed. Or below the 40th, actually. So the only thing he was below average in was bat speed and outs above average, where he had a -4 outs above average. That said, this is a guy that mostly DH'd for the Mariners in 2025, played second base every once in a while, but playing DH helps him stay healthy, and helped him put up better numbers in 2025 than he did in his first season in a Mariners uniform in 2024. He was able to hit a lot of those things he needed to hit in order to get his contract up. He's able to earn money, actually a lot less than probably he should have for the numbers he put up, but it was a very good season. He was a big piece of the Mariners lineup. Obviously, he had one of the greatest moments in franchise history in Game 5 of the ALDS to send the Mariners to the ALCS. But this is also a guy that is a big leader. He's a veteran presence that is a leader on the team, leader in the clubhouse, allows a lot off the field as well. He knows Julio well. He's a big presence in this team. And what we know about the guy is that he likes to be comfortable where he's playing. He stayed in Minnesota his entire career until he got traded to the Mariners. And then he had opportunities in Houston, I think in New York as well, for similar amounts of money. But he decided to come back to Seattle, a place that he was comfortable in 2025, and he put up one of the best seasons of his career. That said, this is a guy that in his career has struggled to stay healthy, and in the past 5 years has been healthy 2 of 3 years. In those 2 years, he's been very, very good. And for the most part, when he's been hurt, he's also been pretty good when he's been productive. But when he's played hurt, he's been less productive, and you saw that in his 2024 season in a Seattle Mariners uniform. That said, this is a guy that is a key part of this team. He doesn't have any worry in terms of splits. This is a guy that has a 150 WRC plus against lefties and a 127 against righties. He's above average in both senses. He's very good as a DH. He's very good as a second baseman. He's a guy that sometimes when players switch to playing DH full-time, they struggle more. This is not that guy. This guy's very good as a DH. He hit 248, 309, 470 as a DH, a 120 WRC plus. Strikeout percentage remained the same. Walk percentage remained about the same. He's been pretty consistent in those things. Second base, same walk percentage, same strikeout percentage. He hit 274, 331, 492 with his WRC plus at 132, so 12% better compared to league average than he was as a DH, but he was a very productive hitter at the DH position. This is a very good hitter. This is a hitter that the Mariners need because they do have a lot of strikeouts. And if we switch to Brandon Lowe, that is going to be a very big topic we talk about. The two biggest differences between these guys are their splits against left-handed pitchers, and their strikeout percentage. Other than that, they are very similar hitters. Jorge Polanco, a switch hitter. Brandon Lowe's a left-handed hitter. If you want to look at the year Jorge Polanco had before coming to Seattle, like I said, he's been hurt in those years, but he was still productive when he was healthy. 80 games in 2023, put up a 116 WRC plus. He hit 255, 335, 454. He hit 14 home runs, a 10.5% walk rate, and a 25.7% strikeout rate. His strikeout rate in 2025 was a lot lower than it had been since 2021 in any year. Larger sample might be part of that. Being healthier might be part of that. But that is something that if he can't continue to keep that strikeout rate down, all of his other numbers are also going to tick down. What are the chances that Jorge Polanco puts up 2.5 wins, providing zero defensive value? What are the odds he hits 26 home runs, plays 138 games, and puts up a 132 WRC plus again? Not very high. That's why the Mariners are going to have to be very careful with what they do in terms of financially with Jorge Polanco. Now, moving on to that financial stuff. Market value according to Spotrac, $14.5 million. What you're looking at here is the Garver contract, if not bigger than that. The Garver contract was 2 years, $12 million, and there was a third-year option. Jorge Polanco is probably going to ask for something similar, but the money is probably going to be closer to 14 a year. You're looking closer to 2 years, $28 million, 2 years, $30 million, than 2 years, $20 million, 2 years, $24 million. The question is, though, does Jorge Polanco want to test free agency and see if he can get a 3, 4, or 5 year deal? I don't think it's going to happen. But if he does go get a 3, 4, or 5 year deal, the AAV probably sits closer to $10 or $12 million. And I'll tell you right now, the Mariners are not going to be the team to do that. The Mariners are very interested in this guy. We've seen that. You've seen Divish, Daniel Kramer, Adam Jude all talk and write about how this is a priority for the Mariners, especially after getting Josh Naylor already done. The Mariners partially just want to run it back from 2025 in 2026. And you can understand why. They got the city back involved. They got the fan base back involved. They did something that they haven't done in a very long time. That said, some of these guys are not going to be as good as they were in 2025. Some might be better, and they'll pick up the slack. But you have to upgrade in other ways too. Now, losing Jorge Polanco would be a downgrade. That's why the Mariners don't want to do that. In some ways, can't afford to do that. And it's why, in an ideal world, Jorge Polanco will be a Mariner by Christmas, by New Year's. And then you have the entirety of the month of January to really then figure it out where else you're going to upgrade. Is that the reliever market? Is that upgrading your bullpen? Is it getting another bat that can play third base, second base, right field? Is it adding depth pieces, a utility type of guy? With Dylan Moore gone, you don't have a true utility guy. Is it a high-leverage reliever? Is it a mid-leverage reliever? Is it multiple mid-leverage relievers? Is it a mid-leverage reliever and a high-leverage reliever? Or is one of those going to happen before Jorge Polanco? But if you want Jorge Polanco, this is the type of thing that can't wait, like it did last year, until the second week of February. This is something that has to get done sooner rather than later, so that if you don't get him, there are options to pivot. You can go get a Brendan Donovan, or the guy I'm going to talk about in a second. You can go get Brandon Lowe. There are options to replace what Jorge Polanco did. Are they going to put up the same level of production compared to what Jorge Polanco did in 2025? Likely not. But if you can get a guy for $10 million via trade, and then you can get another guy for $4 million via trade, and those guys are both fairly productive, all of a sudden you're getting 2 bats to replace Jorge Polanco's production for a similar amount of money. So I've seen people saying that it is Jorge Polanco or bust for the rest of this Mariners offseason. And that's just not true. Yes, Jorge Polanco is the guy you want. It would be great to have him. But it is not a catastrophic event if you do not get Jorge Polanco. The problem would be if you don't get Jorge Polanco and you don't rebound to someone else. Because you do have to fill that production somehow. You do need someone else in your lineup. You do need another bat, at least one. You don't want to roll with Dominic Enzo and Victor Robles, Cole Young, and Ben Williamson, or Cole Emerson starting, in my opinion. There's a lot of risk there, and for a team that is in a prime position to go take this division from the Astros in a big way and do it year after year after year and create a sort of AL West dynasty of sorts and get yourself into ALCS after ALCS after ALCS and in a position where you can go make a World Series. You can't sit on your butt now. And it's not, we need to run back this exact same squad. But it's like I mentioned, even if they get Jorge Polanco, they still need to upgrade. So if you don't get Jorge Polanco, then you have to continue upgrading. And maybe it's not the same type of guy. Maybe it's not Brandon Lowe. But Brandon Lowe is a guy that makes a lot of sense. This is a guy that can play second base or can play DH. The difference, though, Brandon Lowe, left-handed hitter, and his splits against left-handed pitching are a little bit brutal. We're going to start, though, with the player overall. 2025, a good year for him. 256, 307, 477, a 114 WRC+. He has more power than Polanco, 31 home runs, nearly 2 wins. 7% walk rate, and the big problem, a 27% strikeout rate. That is closer to what Jorge Polanco posted in 2024, and we have seen when they are really high strikeout rate guys at T-Mobile Park, they start to get in their head and they start to struggle. But left-handed pole power hitter like Brandon Lowe is more successful generally due to a shorter porch in right field. They like those sections 106, 107, 108, 109. And they like the hit it here cafe. That's where they like to pull the ball and hit the ball. 2024, another good year for Brandon Lowe. This is a very consistent guy. 311, 473, 123 WRC plus 21 homers, 2.2 wins, 8% walk rate, 26.5% strikeout rate. He played 107 games. 2025, played 134 games. Similar to Jorge Polanco, this is a guy that also struggles with injuries in a sense. That said, it's not quite to the same extent as a Jorge Polanco. Jorge Polanco struggles to play 100 games, often in years. Lowe has played over 100 games 3 straight years and 4 of the last 5. In those years, like I said, he's been pretty consistent. A 27% strikeout rate, a 26.5, and a 27 in 2023, 2024, 2025. A 116 WRC plus, a 123 WRC plus, and a 114 WRC plus. His defensive value has gone down each of those years. And that makes sense. He'll be in his age 31 season in 2025 or 2026, and he's on the wrong side now of 30. That's the other issue with him. Are you concerned about that strikeout rate continuing to rise or rising more as he continues to age? That said, like I said, he's a very consistent player. 21 homers, 21 homers, 31 homers. The 31 homers, he played over 20 more games. Over 25, actually, than in that season than he did in either of the seasons before. But, like I said, similarities, injuries. But when healthy, it's production, it's pull side to the left side, it's right field. It's about an 8 or 9% walk rate, which is actually very similar between the two. The strikeout rate is the major difference. And for a team that doesn't want guys that are going to strike out a whole lot, this might be a thing that deters them away from Brandon Lowe. The other thing that might deter them away, though, like I said earlier, is his splits against left-handed pitching. In 2025, splits against lefties, 139 at-bats, he hit 194, 231, 317. His slugging percentage was over 200 points lower against lefties than righties. It was a 49 WRC plus and over a 30% walk rate or strikeout rate, with his walk rate under 3.5%. His production, though, comes against righties. And when you mostly see righties, like you do in Major League Baseball, then oftentimes it's fine, and it's why he's been a very productive player. The problem is, where you might like that, oh, well, he sucks. He's not as good against lefties. I don't want to say he sucks, but he's not as good against lefties. Maybe you're like, okay, we have someone that can fill in. You do have Michael Arroyo coming up, right-handed hitter that can play second base. But can you carry Michael Arroyo, Cole Young, and Brandon Lowe? 3 guys that really all are one position or DH guys? That's difficult to do. Obviously, in September, you might be able to do that. But it's a little bit more difficult to see. On his left-right splits, let's look at 2024. Because in 2024, he actually was fine against both sides. Starting with the number of at-bats that he had, though. He only had 68 at-bats against left-handed pitchers and 317 against righties in 2024. That said, his production in those at-bats, a lot better. 138 WRC plus against lefties in 2024. He hit 265, 306, and 529. Big difference is that slugging percentage. And actually, his numbers were better against left-handed pitching than right-handed pitching. The issue still, nearly a 30% walk rate and around a 4% walk rate and over a 30% strikeout rate. In 2025, it was over 30, under 3.5. 2024, over 4% walk rate, under 30% strikeout rate. It seems as though if he can keep those like he did in 2024, he might be able to be more productive. That said, he didn't get exposed to a whole lot of left-handed pitching. And definitely not as much as he did in 2025. They exposed him a little bit more against left-handed pitching, and he struggled. Going back another year to 2023, you look at his splits. 53 at-bats against left-handed pitching. 25% strikeout rate. 12% walk rate. So those numbers actually are where you might want them. But he hit 170, 286, and 226. He slugged 226 against lefties. Good enough for a 54 WRC plus. If you want to know where that slugging came from a singular extra base hit, a singular home run. 2024, against lefties, he had 4 home runs, 6 doubles. 2025, 2 doubles, 5 home runs. The question is, can he provide some slugging against left-handed pitching? And like I was just saying, do the Mariners have someone that would be able to fill in for him if he can't hit left-handed pitching? Now, if he's DHing, then maybe it's Victor Robles and Dom Canzone both in the lineup. But that's, again, relying on Ben Williamson, Cole Young, Victor Robles, and Canzone all to be productive, which to me feels unlikely that they're all productive and/or all healthy. If you want to talk about Brandon Lowe's splits as a designated hitter, he only had 36 at-bats, but a 164 WRC plus in 2025, 278, 333, and a 639 slug. The other thing I wanted to look at is what Cole Young did against left-handed pitching in 2025. And actually, he wasn't very bad. 60 at-bats, nearly 59 on the dot, 220, 313, 322 was an 89 WRC plus. Now it's below average, but I'd rather have the 89 WRC plus than the 49 WRC plus. Only a 20% strikeout rate and a 10.5% walk rate. That's where his value came in. Young provided really good at bats. And when you watch the Blue Jays in October, part of why they were so successful is that they put up tough at bats 1 through 9. The Mariners have guys already in their lineup that are going to strike out quite a bit and are not going to put up as competitive as of at bats. Does adding a guy like Brandon Lowe that's going to strike out 27-30% of the time make your lineup longer? In some ways, yes, because he's a better hitter than other guys. But if he's putting up worse at bats, then you still have that issue of this lineup is very hit or miss. They could go through a game where they have multiple guys just striking out a lot, and a starter can get 7-8 innings deep, if not complete game. And then when that happens, then it's tough for the rest of the series because they're not using some of those bullpen arms. So even if you're losing games, you want to be able to put up competitive at-bats, and Brandon Lowe's a guy that isn't going to be able to do that as well as Jorge Polanco. Now, it's all about what you add in totality. Because Brandon Lowe is going to make less in 2026 than Jorge Polanco will. Only $11.5 million contract. And it's only 1 year. So it's not going to cost as much on the trade market. But it is a guy that feels volatile, feels scary. And he is a decent, solid backup for if Jorge Polanco can't sign. But he has some red flags. He has some issues. And it's still a question of whether or not he would be successful in T-Mobile Park. So when you're comparing the two of these guys, it's very clear who you want. And it's the guy that not only has already been in a Mariners uniform, it's the guy that's a switch hitter, and it's a guy that's overall just a better hitter and a better fit for your lineup. And I don't want to act like, oh, just because he strikes out a lot, he's scary and I don't want him. That's not what I'm saying. I want this to be a long lineup that pitchers don't want to face. And I would rather have Jorge Polanco in that lineup than Brandon Lowe. But if you can't get Jorge Polanco, I think Brandon Lowe is a solid backup option and backup plan to be able to fill that second base and DH role that Jorge Polanco plays. That said, that is all for today's episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. This has been episode 99 of the On the Diamond and Into the Deep podcast. This will be out later Tuesday evening. And then we have a special announcement on Wednesday for the future of this podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. It's at Diamond and Deep on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube as of right now. Thank you guys so much for listening. Till next time. Peace. Go Mariners.